right, so we can see on this picture over here, we kind of have our eyes already laid out. Something that I didn't really go over, but it's okay to do, is to kind of plot out where your eyebrows are going to be. Now, your eyebrows themselves may not necessarily be in like a hard edge shape. I know some of you wake up in the morning and spend a lot of time on your eyebrows. That's fine. And you may have really crisp edges or lines or shapes there to be able to draw. For a lot of the rest of us, it's just going to be some of the areas going to kind of be thick hair, and other areas might just be light hair. We don't have to draw anything very dark over here, and you don't have to start drawing hairs or anything else like that. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. We are just going to shade this later in charcoal, so don't shade it with pencil at all. But you can get in there and kind of lightly identify where your eyebrows are going to be. We can also do our eyelids. That was part of the drawing and the demo that I did the other day. How to do the noses is not going to be dramatically different from what I was saying the other day, but I do want to go over some of the basic things you want to keep in mind. Number one is got to make sure that we're in the right box and in the right place. And one of the things I'm going to tell you to do is literally right on your picture, make your give yourself vertical lines right on the edges of your nostrils, the furthest width out. Give yourself a horizontal line right underneath that center septum of the nose, okay? You can mark off other places, but really I want you to focus really on the width of this thing. You don't need a line up here. The width of this thing and how low does it go. Now, again, I was mentioning earlier about generally when people do this for the first time, their inclination is to follow the grid, make these marks, and then look at them and say, this doesn't seem right. My nose can't possibly be that big. And then they start making adjustments. And I think this is the same thing that happens to people when they start going to the plastic surgeon, especially with their nose. They just keep on making their nose smaller and smaller and smaller. And after a while, it starts looking a little ridiculous. So resist that urge. Look to see where these horizontals and verticals intersect. Look that this little space here in this box is a little bit wider than the space over here, and it is close to 50-50. Don't cheat it. Don't try to, kind of, well, I want my nose to be a little bit smaller and I'll change it. Because when you start moving things around on your face, that's when things start getting a little weird looking. People's faces start looking a little crooked, and it really doesn't help us in our goal of making an accurate portrait. So right now I've kind of identified where that septum is going to be, how low is it going to go, and the width of those nostrils. Now I want to take a look, and now's the time to kind of focus on the shapes. One of the things I can do over here is I can kind of look to see how much higher up from that center dip here is my nostrils. And I can give myself a little hint over there. I can kind of look to mark that off on my page. That might be something that's helpful to you. Some people kind of keep it very flat, give themselves a pig nose. It doesn't really make sense. Now, just because you're symmetrical doesn't mean you're going to be lined up centered on the grid. We're going to start with this middle part. We're going to look like it's off center in this box. There's a little tiny wedge of space right in here. And if I get that first, okay, that's going to help me sort of set up where the rest of this is going. And again, another thing that people do sometimes in the beginning is like, well, my nose is in the middle, so I'm going to put it in the middle of the box. Not necessarily true. I've already made that center bump. I've kind of lightly indicated like the height of the nostrils. Now what I want to do is I really want to focus on these outside edges of the nostrils. These are really just going to end up being parentheses, okay? One of the things you want to think about is how high up does that go? You can see a little triangle is formed right over here. And if you get that little triangle, that's going to really help you set that up. Now, some of you might be familiar with the idea if you wear dark colors, it makes you look a little thinner. And that there is some truth to that. Your face without shading on it is, all white. It's going to look a little bit bigger. So if we just go by our measurements in our drawing, your nose is going to look very large. Until we get in there and add those shades of gray, really, you're not going to be able to see it. And as we add the shades of gray, it's going to make it look thinner and going to make it look like it fits. Another thing you can always think about is you can look at your eyes and how big your eyes might be, and then take a look at your nose. For almost all of you, your nose is going to be larger than your eyes. So don't get into a situation where you're reversing that as you're working. One of the things I want you to kind of consider when you look at what I've drawn is, and everybody should just give me their attention just for a second, one of the things some other people end up doing is they feel like there needs to be some sort of line over here. Okay? Do we see edges on this part of the nose, on the bridge of the nose? We do not. We may see a dark shading in the middle, but that's kind of faded out. All you really need to draw is the edge of those nostrils, the center of the septum, and just the little hole, the nostril holes over here. That's it. Don't have to get involved with too much else. We don't make lines going up the side of our face unless we see them. Once again, I'm going to reiterate, don't draw what you don't see. If you do this and you don't think it looks right, that's why I'm walking around the room. I'm not going to let you move on to shading this thing and finishing this thing without me double checking it. I'm not going to let you shade a nose that's crooked or too small or too big. All right? Trust your measurements, trust what you're putting down, and realize you don't need to draw all that much. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the nose.